Welcome to another Monday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG SCK80. Once again, SCK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps, whether it's Amazon, iTunes, or the Apple Play store or Google Play. Wherever you get your apps, make sure that it says Sports Zone Chicago. You can watch our live shows, including this one, Second City Sports. If you miss any of our shows, they're archived. You can go back and listen and watch them at your own leisure. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports? You can by subscribing to War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, you can follow those guys at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media. That's WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, subscribe. We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. Lakeena, going through life and just going through everyday situations, there's a lot of things that you already know. There's some things, especially when you're younger, that you don't know, and then there's some things that you don't know that you don't know. And then when you see some things that play out that you thought that it was going to play out, it really the thrill is gone, and it gets predictable, it gets tiresome, it gets boring, and then just at the end of the day, it just gets ridiculous. I am referring to the Chicago Bears after another bad loss to a very good Baltimore Ravens team without Lamar Jackson, 16-13 yesterday at Soldier Field at the Lakefront. Lakeena, we said what we had to say all year about this team. They're now 3-7. As the great Bill Parcells once said, you are what your record says you are. So it doesn't really give me pleasure to speculate on what's going to happen in the future. It'll probably slip in this conversation, I'm sure, at some point, even though I don't want to go through it. I'm sure that people are going to speculate, is Matt Nagy gone? What happens to this team in the future? I really don't want to have that conversation, but I'm sure it's going to slip in here at some point. I'm just trying to memorize it. And then I'm thinking about what's the philosophy of this organization going forward? Do we even know? And how bad is it behind the scenes? It just gets tiresome. It gets annoying. And I'm just running out of words to say, because what is there to be said that hasn't already been said? Maybe you can help me out. I don't know.
Well, look, I think. Well, here's something that something a little about Mr. Tyler Huntley. He is a 2-year rookie. Well, he's not a rookie. He's a 2-year guy coming out of Utah. We'll talk about what he did. What his alma mater did. Got a big win a little later on in the show, but he's only started 5 times in his career. And he literally last minute, like a couple hours before the game, because it looked like Lamar Jackson, whatever it was, whether it was, cold or flu or whatever. And, unfortunately he didn't get a chance to practice very much. And look, they were short, and the Ravens were shorthanded. They didn't have, not only didn't they didn't have Lamar, they didn't have Marquise Hollywood Brown, who was banged up with an ankle injury. There was some other injuries that they've had, and also too, not only that, but also the other injuries that the Ravens had, guys on IR and things like that. But look, you got to give them credit. I mean, that's So I heard a couple people say earlier, it's coaching. That's coaching. That's the fact that Huntley was able to kind of overcome some of those things. He had an earlier interception with Tashawn Gibson, but he led on a game-winning drive. I don't know which defense missed out on Sammy Watkins, who that was just like busted coverage or blown coverage or whatever. But then you had Justin Fields go out with a rib injury, but we don't know when he got the rib injury. Was it because from a hit, or was it because of the accumulation of injuries? So we don't really know where all of this sort of transpired. With the sorry about that, folks, with the rib injury. So, it just look. I mean, the defense did what they were supposed to. They kept the Bears in it, but the problem is that they didn't make the plays when they had to, and they didn't make the plays when it counted. So, give the Ravens credit. The fact that they were able, look, this team won 7 games with virtually a bunch of veteran guys who probably weren't on the team earlier this year. So, and as for the Bears, look, the Bears are, look, they are. I'm going to channel the late great Denny Green, like they are who you thought they were. And look, I mean, they're going to have a short week. Fortunately, they're going to be playing the Lions on Thanksgiving. Who knows if that'll be, I don't know. That's not a gimme. I know, but yeah, it's just that whole game was just weird from start to finish, and it was just and then we had the number one team on the show, so on the game, and but they Romo did what he could to kind of try to make it a little less terrible, but it wasn't going to happen. But I don't know what how do you feel about the game yesterday, Sid?
First, if you want to comment on today's show or any of our topics during our show today, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Once again, Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube or Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook. Type in your questions or comments, and we'll answer them for you. Lakeena will get them up on the screen. But if you decide to do something stupid or decide to troll, Lakeena will politely give you the boot.
Bye bye.
Now, as far as giving the boot on the review of the game yesterday, of course, worst kept secret amongst our listeners and viewers. I watched the Bears game via my DVR because there are other games that are interesting. They're airing on at the same time. We'll get to those games coming up later on in this hour. But as far as the game yesterday, Lakeena, I actually like the Bears' first drive in the first quarter. As we said on Friday, how the Bears will come out, it will tell you how the game is going to be. Of course, they were in
Mhm.
shots just like everybody else that Lamar Jackson wasn't playing, but the offense moved the ball well. David Montgomery, even though he didn't have the yards, we'll break down the stats in just a moment. But David Montgomery looked good. The offensive line, as we said before, they have been hit and miss all year. They're great when it comes to run blocking, but everything else is just not good. But that first drive was good, and then Cairo Santos has been in a funk the last couple of weeks after his field goal streak was snapped.
Mhm.
He missed the field goal, and I think that killed momentum right there. But the Bears somehow, some way, was in that game thanks to the defense with 6 sacks and all. It was great for Robert Quinn to show up. He had 3.5 of them.
Mhm.
So he's been hit and miss all year too. It was nice to see him show up finally. That secondary outside of Jalen Johnson, as we said before, stinks. The linebacking core is okay. Roquan Smith, I know he's looking to get paid very soon, and he deserves his paycheck, by the way. But Lakeena, even after the Justin Fields injury, you just waited for the Bears to make that big play. It did happen on the second throw from Andy Dalton to Darnell Mooney, which gave the Bears a short 7-6 lead. But after that, they just couldn't find a way to put the Ravens to bed. The Ravens, be honest with you, Lakeem, just going through those highlights, it's just I got the tone that if if it's, somehow we find a way to win this game, even though on paper we're not supposed to without our best player, that's fine, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, a lot of their best players, and look, that's coaching. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know what there was a fourth. There was a 4th and 1 when Dalton came in, and I guess they were trying to do a wildcat to David Montgomery, and they missed horribly. And I don't know what. Look, they only needed 1 yard, so I don't know why they tried to do the wildcat. But
Like you
I
said, that's coaching.
that's coaching. That's what coaching does. I'm like, look, John Harbaugh has been able to find a way to do this with less, and the fact that he should be right there in the consideration for Coach of the Year. Now, as for the Bears, I mean, look, you already got people saying that should the Bears lose to the Lions on Thanksgiving, maybe they should just let Nagy go. But again, at this point, we just don't know what's going to happen. So I think people need to kind of just slow down on that front. And look, I mean, as far as this Bears team, I mean, look, the look, the Ravens did what they were supposed to do. Look, they did just enough to keep themselves in the game. When they gave up that run, that 4th and 11 that you
Mhm.
know somehow Dalton found Mooney for the touchdown, and it just, I don't know how what happened there, but that was another blown coverage. But the fact that the Ravens were able to come right back, they were able to, they had a pass interference play that kept the drive going. But then after that play, someone, I don't know who's supposed to have been getting who's supposed to have been on Sammy Watkins. I don't know, was that supposed to have been Gibson? Was that supposed to have been I don't know who, somebody missed out on Sammy Watkins, and he was able to kind of set it up, and Devontae Freeman, I should say, were able to run it in for that game, ended up being a game-winning touchdown. And look, I mean, also to the sacks, Tyus Bauer had a sack, had a couple of sacks late, sack
Mm.
Andy Dalton late, so that kind of sealed the win for them. And look, it's coach. Look, they were out coached, they were outplayed, and look, the Ravens are showing you why they're 7-3.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live and in living color right here on Sports Zone. Chicago Sid, Lakeena here with you as we break down the Bears' 5-game losing streak, losing to the Baltimore Ravens yesterday on the lakefront, 16-13. Taking a look at some of the numbers from the Bears from yesterday's loss. Andy Dalton, as Lakeena mentioned, he was 11 of 23 for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. His QB rating was 107.3. Justin Fields, who was injured early in the second half, he was 4 of 11 for 79 yards. He had a fumble as well. Rushing statistics: David Montgomery, 14 carries for 58 yards. Where did that go after the first quarter? It's not his
Mm,
fault. It's, as you said, Lakeena, it's coaching.
mm,
Khalil Herbert, 1 carry for no yards. The receiving department, even though Allen Robinson was missing yesterday due to injury, Darnell Mooney stepped up, 5 catches and a touchdown for 121 yards. And Marquise Goodwin had 4 catches, 104 yards, and that go-ahead touchdown at the time late in the game. Did you catch Jim Nance's call? He almost lost his voice. It's a touchdown! Oh, Goodwin! Oh my goodness! It was on a 4th and 6, and Andy Dalton got hit because Baltimore was bringing the house. Jim
mm.
Nance was shot just like all of us was.
Right, I know, right? I mean, and then yeah,
It is gone.
yeah, I know. He almost lost his voice there, but yeah, I mean, look, it actually ended up being an okay game, but look, unfortunately, if you're the Bears, I think it just showed that. Look, I mean, look, Roquan will get his money. I think he led the team with
Mhm,
13 tackles. Robert Quinn, had about 3.5 sacks, but again, the defense unfortunately, messed up late. So that's what,
mhm,
killed them late. And that's been the sort of thing with the defense. They give it up big drives. So yeah, they would play well for like maybe the first, early parts of the game. But unfortunately, late when the team really needed them, they didn't, do what they were supposed to do. So unfortunately, it's all kind of, a moot point.
yeah, you could blame all on injuries, the big guys not being there with Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, and Khalil Mack. But you just read 6 sacks as his defense yesterday. They couldn't make one more play. That's inexcusable. And that last drive that Baltimore had, the Bears couldn't stop it. 4 plays and they were down in your red zone. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that whole thing was just. Well, look, I think that drive, I think, just described the Bears season in that one drive. And I think that's
Yeah,
sort of the thing. I think that drive started, with the Bears season. And look, I feel like maybe, look, they're 3-7, you know, they're not going to the playoffs. And I don't know. I don't know. So I'm at that point where I'm like, let's just get ready for next year. If look,
yeah.
if Fields can't play, then there's a good chance he might not. Okay, fine. Get Andy Dalton out there, or if not, some people have even said, put Foles out there. I don't want to. I don't want to Devin.
Why? Why you put Foles out there? Why?
I don't, like I said, I don't know why you would even put him out there at this point, but it's just it's just terrible at this point. And look, you can blame injuries, you can blame all this other stuff, but it's a combination of things. It's a combination of coaches, a combination of personnel, and just the fact that this team just isn't good enough. We've been saying it all year.
Here's the question I want to ask our listeners and viewers. Are you rooting for the Bears to lose on Thursday so Matt Nagy can go? Are you? We want to hear your responses on our Facebook page at Sports Zone Chicago or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Place your answers or questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Are you rooting for the Bears to lose on Thursday, whether it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton? Me personally, I think it's going to be Andy Dalton at the helm on Thursday. And we still haven't had an update yet on Mr. Fields' condition. But
Right.
if you want to go this route, I'll go there with you, Lakeena. I think that head coach Matt Nagy will get what he wants. I'm a ride or die with Andy Dalton, and it starts this Thursday at Detroit. And no matter what happens, he can say that I did it my way. Justin Fields wasn't ready yet. He got
Mhm.
hurt and he wasn't prepared. He had to learn on the fly. Andy Dalton is a veteran. I wanted Andy Dalton to start the season, which he did until he got hurt. Now I want him to start on Thursday, and despite what happens, if he's going to go down, talking about head coach Matt Nagy, he's going to go down his way. And if that's the case, this really going to set this franchise back.
Mm. I mean, what more can you say? What else can be said at this point? Because it
Mm-hmm.
is just for me, it's just like, you know what, let's just get ready for next year. You're gonna have to be you're gonna be rid of some of these guys off the books, you know, guys like Hicks and A Rob, and a lot of those, that money is gonna go off the books. Are you gonna give Roquan his money? If not, what else are you gonna do? So look, there's
Mm-hmm.
still a lot to figure out, and look, they've got a lot of dead money. So yeah, I would say just see what you can we can kind of just see what you have with some of the young guys, and try to at least make it respectable. Finish like an 8 or 9 or 7 and 10, because you're not going to the playoffs. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many good teams in the NFC.
Yeah, wrapping up our recap, taking a look at the numbers from the Baltimore Ravens. Hunley, the second year quarterback, he had an interception off of 219 yards passing. He was 26 to 36. His QB rating was at a even 76. In the rushing department, Devontae Freeman, as you mentioned, Lakeena had the game-winning touchdown. He had 16 carries for 49 yards. Mr. Hunley, the QB, had 7 carries for 40 yards. As we said before, the Bears in recent history has had problems with the scrambling quarterback, and yesterday was no exception. Latavius Murray had 10 carries for 32 yards. In the receiving department, we told you this on Friday. Mark Andrews, he
Mm-hmm.
had 8 catches rather for 73 yards, and Sammy Watkins, the former world champion from the Kansas City Chiefs, he had 3 catches for 48 yards.
And we got our buddy Anthony Price. What's up, Anthony? We always love it when new people come in. He says
Mm-hmm.
Nagy's been on the hot seat the last 3 games. Now, if you lose again to the winless Lions, he won't be the coach the next day. Real? Are
Yeah.
you sure about that, Anthony? Are you sure about that? Because this regime does this Bears regime does not like to do stuff in the middle of the season. So
Mm-hmm.
you know I'm not so sure about that. But again, I'll let you decide that one.
Yeah, as we said before, Lakeena, the McCaskies, they're great business decision makers, but when it comes to football, they have no clue. And I don't want to repeat myself over and over again about that. You're right, Mr. Price, and I appreciate your comments. Please keep supporting us. But if this was any other organization, Nagy would have been gone already. But if they get in, as we'll ask the question again, you can place your comments in our comment section at Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Are you rooting for the Bears to get embarrassed on Thursday? Because the whole world's going to be watching as they're taking on the winless Lions team. Are you rooting for the Bears to get embarrassed? Will the McCaskies finally wake up in your minds? I don't think they will personally, but stranger things that happen. It just hasn't happened around here, and that was going in the favor of taking this franchise to the next level.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens there. But with that said, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Sydney Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee, and we'll talk the rest. Let's start talking about the rest of the week 11 slate here, Sid. We'll also be doing our studs and duds later on in the show. And probably one of the bigger upsets, and we'll do like the first noon game right off the bat. Buffalo loses to Indianapolis 41-15. Jonathan Taylor had 185 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. If you had him on your fantasy team, you had a pretty good day yesterday. He is a 4th player in Colts history to record multiple seasons with 10 rushing touchdowns at least, joining the likes of Edgerrin James, Marshall Faulk, and Joseph Adai. Were you surprised by that upset?
I was, especially how many points that the Colts put up. I was surprised. But here's the thing for Buffalo, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. If your quarterback, Josh Allen, is your leading rusher, you're not going anywhere. And that's what happened yesterday. And Buffalo, they can run the football, but if you depend on Josh Allen to do everything, that's going to be problems for you. Their defense just had a bad day yesterday. The Colts came out with a great game plan. Carson Wentz actually looked like a healthy quarterback, even though he's still running on two bad ankles. He looked good on a couple of scrambles there. And so Indianapolis kept it simple. Shout out to head coach Frank Wright. They kept it simple, run the football and taking the pressure off of Carson Wentz. The game plan worked, and they deserve the win. If you're Buffalo, this knocks you down a notch or two. We all talked about them perhaps going to the Super Bowl, being the top dog in the AFC. Well, Indianapolis gave them a butt kicking yesterday. Say not so fast.
Mhm. Also 2-3 interceptions for the defense, and that
Mm,
definitely stalled drives. And like you said, Sid, I mean, you need to do your running game more. And like you said, Mac Burita, was the one who led the Bills in rushing, but right after,
mhm.
not too long behind him, was Josh Allen. Like you said, you've got some capable running backs in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Like, how about use them more
Yeah.
properly? Okay, come on. All right, next up here, another probably not big up, not a somewhat of a minor upset. You had Washington being Carolina 27-21. Taylor Heineke had 3 touchdown passes for excuse me for Washington, and Terry McLaurin got caught one of those touchdown passes, 103 receiving yards, also two despite without Chase Young. Their defense kept them at bay, and Cam Newton really didn't look too bad. I mean, he
Hmm.
threw for a couple of touchdowns. It's just that they didn't have the offense in it.
Yeah, the running game was kind of out of sync for the Carolina Panthers. I did check out some of that game yesterday live via my computer. Like you said, Cam Newton, all the pomp and circumstance coming back home, he didn't play that bad. I know he got sacked on the last play of the game, which preserved the win for the Washington football team. But give head coach Ron Rivera credit. He knows Cam the best. That defense had a great game plan, even though I did pick Carolina on our show last Friday. They pressured him when they needed it most. Carolina, it was actually a surprising high scoring affair. They went back and forth, and just like Washington made the plays when they had to. So shout out to Washington.
Yeah, exactly. And look, they're 4-6, so they think they still have a shot to perhaps maybe getting into the division. I mean, getting back in the wild card spot. I mean, Logan Thomas should be back on Sunday, but yeah, and look, I think Carolina. I don't know what else you can say about Carolina at this point. I mean, you thought that maybe they were turning the corner when
Hmm.
with Cam back, but it just didn't. That just wasn't the case there. All right, we'll do one more game before we go to break. Cleveland just edged Detroit 13-10. Tim Boyle had the Bears will probably be facing on Thursday. He had 2 interceptions, I should say.
Hmm.
DeAndre Swift in the losing cause had 136 rushing yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb in his first game back had 130 yards. Baker Mayfield just he's not going to get his money, folks. Two interceptions, but it was actually their defense that kind of saved the day for them. And what real quick though, what do you think about that? What do you think about that game?
One, LeVar Arrington, calling his first game for Fox. He didn't sound too bad. I'm not saying he's going to be the number one analyst on Then You Never Know, but he didn't sound too bad. Him and Gus Johnson were fine on the broadcast. Number two, Detroit, I know quarterback Jared Goff was missing, but they didn't play too bad. They was actually carried, as you mentioned, by their running game. But as we said before, they need some more playmakers on that squad, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They need a number one star wide receiver. Just right now, they don't have it. But their defense has been stepping up the last couple of weeks. And what will they have in store for Chicago on Thursday? Who knows? But the Detroit Lions, I know, like I said, we know record wise they're terrible, but then they are not as bad as people make them out to be. They just don't have the talent yet.
No, they
And
don't.
Cleveland
Also,
were lucky to get out of there with a victory yesterday. I thought they were going to pour it on. That just didn't happen.
exactly. All right, and Mr. Price, it's crazy how Las Vegas got the Bills going to the Super Bowl at 5-1. So I don't know who's making the bets in sports, but look, that's why we don't gamble here. So All right, so we're going to take a really quick break and we'll recap some of the other games and also to our studs and duds. And we'll be right back with Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. In Sunday's Major League Baseball action, the Cubs got pounded 9-1 at home against Kansas City. The White Sox shut out on the road 9-0 at Tampa. NFL preseason on Saturday, the Bills hammered the Bears 41-15. Andy Dalton, 11 of 17, passing 146 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Justin Fields, 9 of 19 for 80 yards. Head coach Matt Nagy says Dalton remains the Week 1 starter and that Fields is ahead of schedule.
When you look at a guy like Justin and you see the things that he's doing, are there some things that he can get better at? Yeah, for sure. That's going to be, we're going to say that 3 years from now, but at the
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NFL, the Bears lost their 5th straight following 16-13 at home against the Ravens. Chicago's Andy Dalton threw 2 touchdown passes after Justin Fields left the game with a rib injury in the third quarter. Chicago was on top 13-9 with 1:41 remaining. The Ravens answered with a 72-yard touchdown drive. Devonta Freeman with a 3-yard run with 22 seconds left to go ahead. The Ravens were playing without starting quarterback Lamar Jackson. He was ruled ineligible 90 minutes before kickoff. Quick turnaround for the Bears. They'll play this Thursday afternoon at Detroit. NHL, the Blackhawks shut out the Canucks 1-0. Chicago 6-10-2 with the win. Brandon Hagel with the only goal Chicago needed. Marc-Andre Fleury with 40 stops in net. NBA, the Bulls beat the Knicks 109-103. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
O'Reilly. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on live and in living color for Monday right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. We are recapping the Week 11 action from the National Football League, the games that took place yesterday. Let's continue with another upset. Lakeena, it was the Houston Texans picking up their second win of the season. They defeated the Tennessee Titans by the score of 22-13. Ryan Tannehill, he cost me some points in fantasy, but that's a whole other issue with those 3 interceptions, but he was 35 of 52 for 323 yards and a touchdown. Adrian Peterson carried the ball 9 times for 40 yards for the Texans. And Westbrook for Nick Westbrook from the Titans.
Cream,
Go ahead. Yeah,
no,
he
Nick
had.
Cream, yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yes, he had 7 catches for 107 yards. Lakeena, I did get a chance to check out some of this game via my computer. Head coach Mike Vrabel for the Titans. We all know that he's a player's coach and he likes to be aggressive. He's the prodigal son, no pun intended, of Bill Belichick, as we call him on this show. But you could tell during the late stages of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, they were going forward on 4th down. They succeeded a couple of times, but you could tell that the Houston Texans were really bringing the pressure on, and Ryan Tannehill was sacked multiple times. The running game couldn't really get going for the Titans, and Houston set the tone. But the Titans got more aggressive as the game went on. They really couldn't solve what Houston did to them on the defensive front. So the Texans decided to show up yesterday, and they picked up the second win of the year.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor in the first game starting back. 2 rushing touchdowns, 107 yards. Not too flashy, but they're just enough to win that game. And like you said, 4 interceptions for the Houston defense, probably their best performance this year. And, Desmond King had 2 of those those ints, and it's just look, it's
Mhm.
just one of those. Look, if you're Tennessee, this is one of those games where you just burn the tape because it's just so, like, strange things happen. And look, a nice win for Houston, get their second win of the season.
Yeah, shout out to Desmond King. He was picked up by the Titans last year after being released by the Chargers. Remember Desmond King? He did.
Yes.
The Titans played the Bears last year. He had another big turnover there. So Houston, that they played with no fear, and the Titans, the pressure was all on them. They buckled under it. Now we talked about this before the break, Lakeena, about Buffalo. We all anointed them as the best team in the AFC. The Titans have been playing well the last couple of weeks, and now they get knocked down as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said before, nice big upset win for Houston. Next up on the slate, no really big surprise. I don't want to go too much into this game. San Fran beat Jacksonville easily, 30-10. So, 49ers go to 5-5. Jimmy G had 2 touchdown passes. Debo Samuel had another 79 rushing yards and a touchdown. And also they sacked Trevor Lawrence 3 times. The defense were able to slow him down. And look, they didn't mess up, and they did what they're supposed to do against the Jaguars. So, could the 49ers be turning the corner, you think?
Maybe. Shout out to Brandon Ayuk, their stud wide receiver. Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, finally decided to use him in a game plan. Mr. Ayuk had 7 catches for 85 yards in an early touchdown. So, like you said, can they be a turn in the corner? We shall see. They're still going to have a tough schedule following this Thanksgiving break. They host Minnesota next week. We'll get to them in just a second. And then they still have to play the Rams one more time. They still have to play the Seahawks, I believe, one more time. So the schedule gets tough for them. But right now, you're in a good position sitting at 5-5.
Exactly. And going to the NFC North, I mean, this is probably one of the games of the day. And ironically, this game was not shown in Chicago, believe it or not. I don't know how that is, but the Vikings, beat the Packers on a last second field goal. It was just a crazy game. I got a chance to watch this game via my laptop here. Great Joseph had a chip shot winning field goal to help seal the win for the Vikings. The Vikings are 5-5. Aaron Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins threw for 3 touchdowns. And look, the Vikings, are they starting to turn a corner? They're at 5-5. They're right there in the us for the playoffs.
Yeah, I watched the entire game too via this computer screen. So it was actually a very entertaining game to watch. You thought the Vikings were on their way to putting the Packers away, but the Packers come back and scored that late first half touchdown, and of course they took the lead. It was a great back and forth. The Justin Jefferson, who was on my fantasy team, he had 8 catches for 169 yards and 2 big scores, including the game winner. Dalvin Cook had 22 carries for 86 yards in the early touchdown. Aaron Rodgers did his thing. The defense for the Packers, they weren't great yesterday. They gave up 31 points. They actually thought they had a couple of takeaways to seal that win, but it was called back due to penalties. And so the Packers got knocked down a notch too. We'll talk about another NFC team that got knocked down too coming up. But the Packers, although they would do a little bit more, the offense showed up. Devontae Adams showed up, but their running game with A.J. Dillon didn't show up as much as I thought it would show up. So credit to the Vikings defense. Credit Kirk Cousins on the flip side. No turnovers. He did what he had to do. And Minnesota almost played a perfect game to beat the Packers, and they came away with the last-second win.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson had 169 receiving yards and a couple of touchdowns, including the game, sort of like the go-ahead touchdown. And look, I think, like I said before, I don't know if this means that the Vikings could turn the corner. Look, they had a couple of games that slip away from them, so they looked really good. The Vikings have. So look, I don't know if they're gonna make the playoffs, but they'll make it interesting, no doubt.
Yep. Another game that we'll spend hopefully less than 2 minutes on. The Miami Dolphins improved their record to 4-7 after beating the hapless Jets 24-17. Joe Flacco in his first start of the season, 24-39, 291 yards and 2 TD passes. Myles Gaskin ran the ball well for Miami, 23 carries, 89 yards. And for the New York Jets, Mr. Elijah Moore had 8 catches for 141 yards and a touchdown. Lakeena, Miami did what they had to do. They covered the spread and they won. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they needed 10 points in the fourth to try to seal the win for them, and look, I think valiant effort by the Jets, and look, Flacco showing that he still has it. Elijah Moore had 141 receiving yards and caught one of those touchdown passes from Flacco. But look, I think the Dolphins, you did what you're supposed to against the Jets, and it actually ended up being a pretty good game, believe it or not. I actually kind of peaked this game a little bit, so it was fine. I mean, I think look, you'll take the win if you're Miami. You're probably not going to go anywhere, but you'll take the win.
This game was shown in its entirety in Chicago. It was the Philadelphia Eagles improving their record to 5-6 after blowing out the Saints 40-29. Trevor Siemian for New Orleans was 22 of 40, 214 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Miles Sanders ran the ball 16 times for 94 yards for Philadelphia. And Mr. Traquan Smith for New Orleans had 5 catches for 64 yards. Jalen Hurts was the story. Lakeena, he had 3 touchdown runs, and that Philadelphia defense is starting to get better every week. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they're a playoff team, but they can surprise the people. And right now, they've been playing well the last couple of weeks. They're sitting one game below 500. On the flip side, for the Saints, as I said before, they haven't looked good on the road the last couple of weeks, and it's starting to show right now.
Not having Kamara, I think, is playing
Exactly.
a big factor. And like you said, and 3 rushing touchdowns for Mr. Hurts. And I don't know where the rumor started about. Some people were saying that maybe Deshaun Watson might be going there to play with, like, when you actually have a pretty solid guy that could, look, it's not his fault that there's not a lot of personnel around him. And, look, the defense did just enough for them to win that game. And, it's going to get, it's going to get very tough for them. And look, no one's saying that they're going to, they're not going to make the playoffs, but look, they're 5-6, so they can make it interesting.
One more note about that game yesterday, Lakeena. I did turn to that game yesterday. Usually because Philadelphia pretty much had that game in hand from the second quarter on. Usually when it does not involve your team, usually the network will cut out to go to a competitive game. From what I saw on the social media circuit and what I saw on my television screen as we approached the 3:00 hour yesterday, Fox did not switch to that Green Bay game.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that. People were not very happy.
And they did not switch to that Carolina-Washington game either. So I was like, for those of you in Chicago, I know the Bears game was on CBS at the same time. I get it. That's probably why that we didn't get the Green Bay Minnesota game. But as I said, I'll watch it live via this computer screen. But Fox did not switch that game at all for you folks in Chicago.
Yeah, that was a tough one there. I mean, look, I know that they made it, the Saints kind of made it interesting, and they scored 22 points, but the game was already out of reach, so it didn't, it was all moot after that. And look, a nice win for Philly, and look, that was just a weird how they did it, but but it was just silly. The NFL rules can be so silly at times.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of that. I know there's still some modifications that they did several years ago, but I'm glad they got rid of the blackout rule because remember back in the day, Lakeena, perfect example yesterday, the Bears had a home game on CBS. If the other network had a doubleheader, the first game wasn't shown or the second game wouldn't be shown. Depends on what time your team played. Now those rules are gone, and so I'm glad for that. We talked about it before.
Oh yeah, thank goodness, because of that. You get the tail end of the game, especially if it's competitive. So thank God they got rid of that rule. But just it was just silly how they did it. But whatever.
Yeah. But thank goodness for my computer, we can check it out.
I know, right?
Via Google. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, thank God for Red Zone. We'll
that too. Yeah. There's always having a Red Zone.
All right, first game on the docket on the 3:00. You got Cincy looks like they're back on track, beating Vegas 32-13. Joe Burrow had a touchdown pass. Joe Mixon had 2 rushing touchdowns, 123 rushing yards. Derek Carr had threw 215 yards, but threw an interception. They just couldn't get the offense going, and I honestly don't know what else can you say about the Raiders at this point. But a nice win for Cincy, though.
What did I say on Friday, Lakeena, even though I did pick the Raiders? If you're Cincinnati, if you think that you're a playoff team, a couple of big wins already this season against Pittsburgh, and they beat Detroit. They're bad on the road, but they were competitive against Green Bay, and they lost badly here in Chicago. But as I said on Friday, if you're Cincinnati, if you want to go to the playoffs, you must win games like this. And they were dominant in the fourth quarter, scoring 19 points. Now, on the flip side for the Raiders, they kept it interesting. As I said on Friday, they were come back and have a great performance. But that second half, it was just ugly. And they really couldn't get a running game going, unlike Cincinnati did with Joe Mixon.
Yeah, 19 points they scored in the fourth quarter, I should say, that helped seal the win for Cincy. And I don't know what you could say about the Raiders at this point because they just couldn't get the running game kind of just killed them and they just couldn't get it going.
They couldn't get it going. You're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago, live and in living color. Sid Lakeena here with you as we continue on recapping the late games from the National Football League from yesterday. If you have a comment or a question for us, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Place your comments or questions in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Next game, the Arizona Cardinals. I didn't expect this to happen, especially in dominating fashion, but they improved their record to 9-2 with a 23-13 victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Colt McCoy does it again for the Cardinals. He was 35 of 44 for 328 yards and 2 touchdown passes. James Conner added another rushing touchdown to his statistics for the year. I believe that's number 13 for him. He had 21 carries for 62 yards in the score. Tyler Lockett was the only bright spot for the Seahawks offensively. 4 catches, 115 yards. Lakeena, I did watch the entire game via my computer live. And you thought that Seattle, as I said on Friday, they need to establish a running game consistently. That still didn't happen yesterday. Russell Wilson still doesn't look right. That defense, they tried, especially in that first half when it was 13-6, but the Cardinals came out of their locker room pretty much fired up, scoring 10 points in that second half. And Zach Ertz, who's on my fantasy team, he had a great game yesterday. 5 catches, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including that shovel pass touchdown to kick off the scoring spree for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I have on my fantasy team too. Help me get a win there. And look, he's been a big pickup for them. And look, I don't think I saw this score coming. I mean, look, you can tell Russell Wilson still does not look right. I mean, you can kind of tell that that the thumb is still bothering him. And unfortunately, I think look, he was sacked 4 times, so and look, Colt McCoy, shout out to him. I mean, he's the only NFL QB, including Seattle QBs, to win starts at Seattle in each of the last 2 regular seasons. He led the Giants to a 17-12 win last December and had 328 yards and 2 touchdowns, in their victory.
Yeah.
So, shout out to him. And look, this is what you're supposed to do. And the good news is that they are on bye this week. So hopefully by the time they come back from the bye, they play the Bears. So hopefully, Kyler Murray will be back, and also with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, look, they went 2-1 without them. So and they're still 9-2. They still have an outside shot again, the number 1 seed, with the Packers losing to the Vikings yesterday.
Our guy Anthony Price asked us, where do you think Russell Wilson is going? And I think he should take Lockett with him. I don't know if Russell Wilson's going anywhere. I don't get that sense, but then again, you never know. But should Mr. Wilson decide to not play in Seattle whenever his contract is up, yeah, you should take Mr. Lockett with him. Mr. Lockett will look great here in Chicago. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but we all know about the problems with the offensive line with the Seattle the last couple of years. I know Russell Wilson complained about that during the offseason. I think he was going to get his way in a one-way ticket out of there. Obviously, that didn't happen, but stranger things have happened. So we'll see what happens as Seattle is now 3-7 on the year. I think their season is over too as far as making the playoffs. They're in the same position as Chicago. So we'll see how Pete Carroll plays this out from now until the end of the season. Fox's America's Game of the Week saw the Kansas City Chiefs improve their record to 7-4 after a 19-9 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs was 23 of 37 for 260 yards. But even though he threw a pick, Carl Edwards-Helaire had 12 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill showed up on the stat sheet, 9 catches for 77 yards. Lakeena, I know CeeDee Lamb, who was on my fantasy team, that hurt me, no pun intended. He left the game early with a concussion. Dak Prescott did not look good. Ezekiel Elliott got nicked up again, but he returned.
Yes.
But you can tell that the Cowboys, as I said, Kansas City needed this game more than Dallas. You could tell Dallas after halftime, even though they try to make a game out of it, they just weren't into it yesterday for
Yeah.
some reason. They just weren't into it.
Dak was sacked 5 times and, 2 interceptions. You tell him not having Amari Cooper there, of course, because of
Mm-hmm.
COVID. So you got to think that played a big part. And look, they couldn't get Zeke going. He got banged up. They had tried to get Tony Pollard going. That didn't work. So look, I don't know what to say about these two teams because it looks like maybe the Cowboys. I told you guys that the Cowboys were not perfect, and they're
Mm-hmm.
they're 7-3, and they play the Raiders on Thanksgiving. So sorry about that, folks. But you know, I mean, look, the Chiefs, they got a nice win. They're 7-4. Yay. You guys still have problems. Whatever. Also, too, shout out to happy belated birthday to the Hall of Famer Troy Aikman, number 55 today. Yes, I should say for Mr. Aikman. So happy belated birthday to him. But look, it's just that this is one of those things where I just don't know what to say about it. And as our buddy Anthony said, that because he didn't get the shot, now he got COVID. Oh, okay, we're not doing that, Anthony. So but yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see, have the Chiefs turn the corner. So we'll see what
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'll just say the last thing I'll say about this game yesterday is just that, as I said before, I thought the Chiefs would win, as I said on our show on Friday, but they weren't dominant. It kind of reminded me of the Packers game a couple weeks ago. Well, of course, the Packers had Jordan Love starting in place of Aaron Rodgers, but it's just still that maybe they are starting to turn the corner. Like I said, I have to see this from the Chiefs get back to that dominant style like they did last Sunday night at Las Vegas on the road. We'll see what happens because right now I'm in a loss for words. Just besides the lack of confidence, we'll see because we'll see. The Sunday night game, the last game on the docket from yesterday, it was the Los Angeles Chargers upending the Steelers 41-37. Justin Herbert 30 of 41 for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had 9 carries for 90 yards. Keenan Allen had 9 catches and 112 yards for the Chargers. Lakeena, the Pittsburgh Steelers made it interesting late, even though they were trailing by 2 touchdowns midway through the fourth quarter. Give Big Ben credit. Najee Harris had a touchdown for the Steelers as well. But Joey Bosa returned to the lineup. He made a huge difference for that Chargers defense up front, and they made the plays down the stretch when they had to. And whoever had the over, because I believe it was 77 points. It was 78 points total between these two teams. Whoever had the over, you're a lucky person that if you want some money on that. So I'll leave it at that.
27 points the Steelers scored in the fourth quarter, but it was the go-ahead touchdown from Herbert to Mike Williams that sealed that game. That was just a crazy quarter from start to finish. Like you said, Steelers, got the comeback going. They had a goal line, had a fourth quarter stop. Then they scored there. Then they came back and scored again. Then they scored again. But then, like I said, Herbert had Williams, and so that sealed the win for them. And like you said, Bosa, came back late, so and was able to stop Big Ben from trying to make another comeback.
Yeah.
So look, good for the Chargers. I think this is the type of win that they needed because they lost a couple of games like this. So this can only help their confidence, especially now with the Chiefs. Or suddenly they've gotten it together. We'll see how they look. And remember, the Chargers actually have a win against the Chiefs, so that can go a long way going into the AFC West. So still a lot to be decided in that division. So for anybody that already says, well, the Chiefs division is theirs, the Chargers may have something to say about that, folks. So don't y'all start that just yet.
You're listening to Second City Sports live and in living color for a Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, we have a couple minutes left before we check out our number one. Who are your studs for Week 11 in the National Football League?
The Cardinals, first and foremost, they're now 6-0 on the road. They're coming by double digits. They're just the 4th team in NFL history to win 6 straight on the road by double digits within the season, and the 3rd team to do that in their first 6 road games in the season. So shout out to them, and I apologize, Cardinals fans, because I had the Seahawks winning that game. Thanks a lot. Tyler Huntley from Baltimore. I mean, the stage didn't get too big. If you heard his interview, his after game interview with Tracy Wilson afterwards, he just said, look, I stepped up and look, I mean, he had a couple of hiccups early on, but look, he made the big plays, and look, good for him, and he got his first career win. So good for Mr. Hundley. Let's see, my last stud, Minnesota. I think Minnesota, they're 5-5 now. They're starting to turn the corner, and look, they could very well end up being right there in the middle for one of those wild card spots in the NFC.
My 3 studs are first Zach Ertz, the tight end from the Arizona Cardinals, 5 catches, 88 yards, and 2 big touchdowns. My second stud is Taylor Heineke, the quarterback from the Washington football team, 206 yards passing off 3 touchdowns for a Washington win over Carolina on the road. The Washington football team now 4-6 on the year. And Justin Jefferson, the second-year wide receiver out of LSU, for the Vikings. He had 8 catches and 169 yards and 2 big touchdowns, including the game winner. He's doing the new school version of the Pee Wee Herman dance. I don't know,
Yeah.
but he had a big day for the Vikings yesterday. So those are my 3 studs.
Bonus that goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. Got a nice win against the Steelers.
And Jonathan Taylor to my bonus.
Yes, excellent. Oh yeah, and deservedly so. I lost my live television, folks. I lost my my headphones. My headphones here, but all right. On the flip side, duds. Oh gosh, Pittsburgh. I mean, what happened there in that little last? You went through all that just to catch up. You scored 27 points, but yet you weren't able to make the stops that you needed. So unfortunately, now you're 5-4-1. So let's see, another dud. Let's see. Green Bay, I know they lost a couple of their guys to injury. They lost one of their top left tackles to injury. Looks like he's gone for the season with a torn ACL. And my dud, Buffalo. What the hell's going on with you guys? Like I was loving for y'all, and you wet the bed against a pretty good Colts team. You gave up 41 points. You're number 1 defense. Really? What the hell happened? Hey, what happened? You gave up 4 rushing touchdowns, 185 yards to Jonathan Taylor. Really? Thank God I wasn't playing against somebody who had him this week. But come on, really? So those are my 3 duds.
My 3 duds quickly. Buffalo. I agree with you there. There's no more to be said. The Tennessee Titans. That was a terrible performance, especially offensively. And the Dallas Cowboys. Those are my 3 duds.
All right. Real quick breakdown of the Monday Nighter. The Giants and the Tampa Bay Bucks. It looks like Gronk's not going to play because of his back. So, I think the Tampa Bay should bounce back though, right? Even despite that, even the Giants, I'm sure will try to keep it close. But I hope if you're the Bucks, I think this is definitely a get right game for them.
It is, and Tom Brady, as we talked about on Friday with our buddy Christine Manica, he has a very long memory, and last week was not their best performance on the road against the Washington football team, especially coming off of the previous week. It's at home. It's on Monday night. Tom Brady saves his best for the bright lights, and I expect nothing but Tampa Bay's best tonight against the New York Football Giants. Now, the Giants, they come in with no pressure. I know they performed just about they almost pulled out the upset a couple of weeks ago at Kansas City. I don't know if we can expect that same performance tonight, but I expect Tampa Bay to come out focused and dominate the Giants. So we picked the Buccaneers on Friday. There's no reason why I'm changing my pick.
Me neither. So
they got to establish a running game, especially Leonard Fournette has to get it going. He hasn't been doing that these last few weeks.
Yeah, I think he's due for a big game. I think he will get it tonight. All right, so that's the NFL Week 11 slate in the books. Hour number 1 of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago in the books. Bulls get a couple big wins this weekend. We'll talk about that. Yay! And also, there were some crazy things that happened in the NBA yesterday, including a big fight in Detroit. But we'll get to that. Also, too, college football, awesome college hoops, some a couple big upsets in some holiday tournaments. So I got a lot to talk about still. Along with Sydney Brown, I'm Lakeena McGee. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NFL, the Bears lost their fifth straight, falling 16-13 at home against the Ravens. Chicago's Andy Dalton threw 2 touchdown passes after Justin Fields left the game with a rib injury in the third quarter. Chicago was on top 13-9 with 1:41 remaining. The Ravens answered with a 72-yard touchdown drive. Devonta Freeman with a 3-yard run with 22 seconds left to go ahead. The Ravens were playing without starting quarterback Lamar Jackson. He was ruled ineligible 90 minutes before kickoff. Quick turnaround for the Bears. They'll play this Thursday afternoon at Detroit. NHL, the Blackhawks shut out the Canucks 1-0. Chicago 6-10-2 with the win. Brandon Hagel with the only goal Chicago needed. Marc-Andre Fleury with 40 stops in net. NBA, the Bulls beat the Knicks 109-103. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
O'Reilly.
When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports live and in living color on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidK80. Once again, at SidK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
Follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
And if you want to make a comment or have a question for us at any point during our last hour of the show, you can do so. You can place your comments in the comment section by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Place your comments or questions in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to do something stupid or decide to troll, Lakeena will politely give you the Beer Lane Beer boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when I say that. Speaking of giving the opponents the boot, let's transition over to the Chicago Bulls. Lakeena, our last show on Friday, we were discussing the 20-point lead that they had last Wednesday against the Portland Trail Blazers, which they lost. And since we last had our show, they defeated the Denver Nuggets to post a 3-2 record on the West Coast. But last night, they got back on track, beating the New York Knicks 109-103. Lakeena, here's the thing about the Chicago Bulls. We said that this team is still growing and gelling, and that's what's still happening right now, even though they don't have Nikolai Vucevic, even though Patrick Williams will be gone for most of the year. Here's the thing, Lakeena. Each time that the Bulls have faced adversity, they punched it right in the mouth by winning the next game. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, Lakeena, when they lost to Golden State in front of a national audience on Friday when they started the road trip. But what did they do? They swept the LA series with the Clippers and Lakers. Last Friday, we talked about how this team needed to bounce back after blowing that 20-point lead against Portland. What did they do? They're on a current 2-game losing streak. They defeated the Denver Nuggets last Friday on the road. And then after a strong first half and a bad third quarter, they come back with a strong fourth quarter to beat the New York Knicks by 6 at home at the UC.
Yeah, nice win for them. And look, I think the Knicks, the Bulls owed the Knicks one, after what happened in the previous meeting. Look, Kobe White, looked really good. We have 14 points off the bench, and you still, see, what the feelings are and such. But a nice big game back for him. DeMar DeRozan led the way with 31, and Zach had 21. And look, I think the fact that they were able to, win these last couple of games, I think can only help your confidence. I know Jokic did not play for the Nuggets. He's going to be gone for a little bit, but look, that's still a pretty good Nuggets team. I know Murray's still out with the with the ACL surgery, still recovering from there. He probably won't be back till maybe around January or February. But still, that's still a pretty good, formidable Nuggets team. So the fact that they were able to do that, I think that's always that's a nice showing by them. And also too, like you said, the Knicks. I know the Knicks were shorthanded too. They were out with a couple of guys because of injury, but the fact that they were able to kind of hold off a run.
Mhm.
Julius Randle helped kept the Knicks in it, but it was a defensive stops. The Bulls made some defensive stops late, and now they're 12-5. They got one of the best records in the Eastern Conference. And look, you gotta be feeling pretty good if you're the Bulls, confidence wise. So
Mhm.
you have the Pacers tonight. You host the Pacers. That they're a good team, not great. I mean, I know they're under first year head coach Rick Carlisle. A guy who this is his first rodeo. He's got a championship, so it's not like he doesn't know how to coach. But still, the Pacers always give the Bulls fits. So, but there's still no reason why they should not win the game tonight. But we'll see. We'll go through the scheduling, but. But if you're the Bulls, I mean, you'll definitely take these last couple of games and last couple of wins and just try to build on it.
Yeah, and that's what you do if you're a good team. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat and compete hard and get some wins against the very good teams. Now, going back to last night's game, the Bulls took advantage of the Knicks schedule because the Knicks will review the best and worst of the weekend of the association coming up in just a couple minutes. But the Knicks were playing in the second game of a back-to-back. They had a home game against the Houston Rockets, which I watched the
Mhm.
majority of that game live via my computer on Saturday. They had to come from behind just to defeat a young and bad Rockets team. And so you could tell, especially early in that first quarter in last night's game against the Bulls, that the Knicks didn't have the energy. The Bulls jumped on them early. And as you said, Lakeena, the defense is the calling card for this Bulls team. And you can thank head coach Billy Donovan for that. Number two, we said that DeMar DeRozan is the closer for this Bulls team. Period. Hands down, no debate. Zach LaVine, he struggled early, but he had 10 points in that fourth quarter to finish with 21 on the night. And what you like from this Bulls team is that if someone doesn't step up offensively, other guys pick it up. And that's what you like to see from a balanced team like this. Lonzo Ball last night, he had 11 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds. But I don't know if you checked out this play, Lakeena, I believe it was early in the first quarter. He saved the possession for the Chicago Bulls. He knocked it off of a Knicks player. I believe it was Julius Randle, and saved it for going out of bounds, knocked it off a Knicks player, and the
Mhm.
possession went back to Chicago. Those little plays like that helps teams win ball games, and that's the difference when it comes down to especially when it's a close game. Those type of hustle plays are the difference between losing and winning.
Yeah, and I think those are the type of games that can kind of look. They can come back to bite you in the butt if you don't, especially if you lose those type of games. So luckily for the
Hmm.
Bulls, they were able to win that game. And look, I think they made the defensive stops when they had to, and
Hmm.
look, they were able to hold off. Very precarious when we know Coach Tibbs teams don't quit. So the
Hmm.
fact that they were able to kind of pull it out. Look, like I said before, they owed. The Bulls owed them. The Knicks owed the Bulls one after what happened in their first meeting. So the fact that they were able to do that. And yes, I know they were coming off a second of a back to back. They were shorthanded. A couple of guys didn't play. Due to the fact that they were coming off a back to back. But still, you still got Julius Randle. You still got D Rose. Coming off the bench, and look, that's still a pretty good Knicks team. So,
Hmm.
but they've had their struggles lately, so you're able to take advantage of that, and and look, that's good. The fact that that's what you're supposed to against a team that that look, we'll see if the Knicks can get it together, but again, you just don't know.
And also, to shout out to Kobe White for the Bulls. This was his third game back as of last night. In 21 minutes of action, he had 14 points, including 3 of 6 from 3-point range. It looks like he's starting to get his groove back, get his timing back. You could tell in that Portland game he didn't have it. The Denver game, he was still struggling here a little bit, but he's starting to get his confidence back. It's still going to take some time as he gets more games played. But I like the energy and his scoring that he brings off the bench. He's going to take some minutes from somebody. Is it rookie Ayo Dosunmu? Is it Derrick Jones Jr., who's been playing great these last couple of weeks?
Hmm.
So it's first world problems, but it's a great problem to have if you head coach Billy Donovan. If Kobe White continues to play like that, he's going to take away minutes from somebody. Is it my guy Javante Green? I doubt it, but he's going to take away valuable minutes from somebody.
Well, I think that's a good problem to have. You're Billy Donovan. I think you kind of Look, you got pieces to play with, which is great. So I think that's sort of look that always helps if you can play with those pieces and look we'll see it. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Do we see Io a little bit less? I mean, maybe,
Hmm.
but look, maybe we'll have to wait and see. I mean, you feel like maybe that that's look, this is a good thing if you're good problem to have here, Billy Donovan. So you've got the depth, you got the piece to play with. Just got to figure out okay, who's better, because it's still gonna maybe be another week, maybe before at the very least until Vooch is able to come back. So
Hmm.
that's another thing that you have to worry about when he comes back. But you know what though, this is good because you get to kind of play around and see what the hell's
You listen to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live and in living color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena with you, talking Bulls and the NBA. If you have a question or comment for us regarding the Bulls or the rest of the NBA, you can do so by dropping your questions or comments in the comment section or on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Lakeena will get those questions or comments up on the screen for you. Lakeena, before we move forward to review the best and worst from the weekend in the association, Luke Walton is sitting he's sitting on his living room couch right now because he was let go yesterday from the Sacramento Kings. In his 2+ seasons as the helm, he had a 68-93 record. And the team has lost 7 of its last 8 games. I believe they're 6-11 on the season now.
saying?
And interim head coach will be Alvin Gentry. The story of the Sacramento Kings, they haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, going on 16 years as of this season. And when we talk about they have some great young talent, Marvin Bagley Jr. I know he's been hurt the last couple of years. You have Halliburton, you still have De'Aaron Fox, and you still have Holmes patrolling the paint. They still have some nice young talent, but just for some reason they haven't put it together. They started out nice the first couple of weeks of the year, but I guess you've been seeing the real Kings show up these last couple of weeks. You still have veteran Harrison Barnes from those Golden State teams earlier in the last decade. Lakeena, will they be able to get that ship right?
You hope so. I mean, I think look, poor Alvin Gentry, he always gets, a chance to have to, pick up the slack for someone when one of
Yeah,
his bosses gets fired. So now he gets to do it
he's
for
like he's the NBA version of Romeo Cornell. He won't get
pretty
the
much,
permanent
yeah.
gig, but he's the bailout plan for somebody.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, look, the talent is there. I mean, like I said before, with Halliburton and Fox, and you got Harrison Barnes, Mr. All Reliable,
and Buddy
Bagley,
Hield too.
and Buddy Hill. Yeah, I'll say, but I think he's been hurt the last
Yeah.
couple of games. So that's you got to think that's not helping them in that sense. But you know, I don't know. I mean, you hope they can. I mean, I know they got a whole new regime there, and unfortunately, Luke Walton was not able to right the ship, if you will. So I know they had a couple of bad losses this week. They got hammered by the Raptors. I saw a little bit of
Hmm.
that game, and like I said, I know Heel wanted out of there. But unfortunately, weren't able to put together a trade. But this
Hmm.
weekend was not a good weekend for them, and it is just they have a tough one tonight against Philly. So they're finishing up a road trip. Philly is, so you got to think that that's another thing. But you feel for the Kings and their fans, 'cause that's a pretty solid and loyal fan base. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I don't know. I mean, can Coach Entry right the ship? I mean, he's capable of doing it. He's done it before, but
Hmm.
but it is what it is. So we'll see what they can do, but it doesn't look good for them at this point because they've lost some heartbreakers. So
Yeah, the best. Now let's get to the best of the worst from this past weekend in the NBA. We'll get to the big story from Detroit in just a moment. But the Milwaukee Bucks, for me, they swept their games over the weekend. Last Friday they defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder at home, 96-89. And of course, they had to hold on, and they were on Saturday against the Orlando Magic. They had to hold on to a 117-108 victory. Well, they were up as much as 29 points in that game. So the Milwaukee Bucks are looking like they're starting to turn things around a little bit. And shout out to Chicago's very own Stephen Bartle. He's doing
mhm.
fill-in work this year on the Bucks telecast with Release of Byington. I know Marcus Johnson is their primary TV analyst, but Stephen Bartle's been doing a great job. I did get a chance to watch some of that game on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. Milwaukee's starting to turn the corner, like you said before. they're getting their guys back, so I think that should help them a little bit. Phoenix is still on a roll. They beat Denver and they beat Dallas. I saw a little bit of that game. They had to come back
Mhm.
against Dallas on Friday, but look, I think they're starting to kind of turn the corner a little bit. They're 12-3 right now. If it weren't for the Warriors, they would have the best record in the Western Conference right
Yeah.
now. So, they've looked good, and look, CP3 is doing what he usually does. It's like Devin Booker is starting to turn the corner a little bit there. Mikal Bridges had 19 to help lead the way for the Suns. And look, they're getting some contributions some guys off the bench. Cam Payne had 10 points off the bench. JaVale McGee had 14 off the bench. So in that Dallas game. And look, they looked really good. I think, some people who were worried about the Suns and maybe they benefited from other teams' injury, but I think they're showing to show you that maybe the Suns team's actually pretty good.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Phoenix had a pretty good weekend, especially with that blowout win last night against Denver. I did not see that coming, but
I
like I
know,
said,
yeah, I know. Like I said, I know Jokic is banged up, but still, I
yeah.
mean, that's not hard. That's not easy to do. So, good for the Suns.
And also, let's give a shout out to the Washington Wizards. I did watch the majority of the second half of this game on last Saturday. They defeated the Miami Heat 103-100. Shout out to our girl Alana Takauer.
I know she's unhappy.
Yeah, right. the Miami Heat, the last 5-6 minutes, they couldn't shoot. Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, and the rest of them, their jump shots went cold. Their Washington team, as I mentioned on Friday, it's a well-balanced team. Is it a championship team? No. Is it a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference? No. But you have Kyle Kuzma there, Daniel Gafford, the former Chicago Bulls, patrolling the paint. You still have KCP, Katavious Caldwell-Pope,
Mhm.
and you still have Bradley Beal, one of the best underrated young scorers in the game. So the Washington has a well-balanced roster, and I was watching them very closely, and they really can play together. They give you some defense, they give you rebounding, and along with the top of the score. So this is a well-balanced roster.
Also, Montrezl Harrell is contributing as
Yes,
well, so
he's
he
a
made
better
the
fit for
move.
that team than unlike a year ago with the Lakers.
Yeah, so he's actually benefiting, actually contributing too. So I think that's definitely
Yes.
helped them in that sense. And look, I say good for Washington. I mean, can they
Hmm.
keep it up? That's another story. But they're 11-5 right now. But they've looked good, and like I said, can they keep it up? Yeah, it might be a bit of a stress. We'll see if maybe they fall back to earth. Get back to me in about a month. If they're still like right there in the top of the Eastern Conference, but they've looked really good so far, and that's a really nice win against Miami. Portland got a much needed win as well. After they beat the Bulls. Okay, yeah, you got lucky on that one, but they did beat Philly 118-111. Dame had 39 and on Saturday in a Saturday game, and they've kind of started to turn the corner a little bit. They're 9-8. We'll see how they look. I mean, they've had like a couple of guys out due to injuries and such, but we'll see if Portland's kind of turned the corner.
Yeah, the Philadelphia still without Joel Embiid, and of course now Lakeena, the big story. Dun, 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 dun. The Los Angeles Lakers last night defeated the Detroit Pistons after trailing by 15, 121-116. The big story, unfortunately, LeBron James inadvertently hit Isaiah Stewart in the eye. Of course, in the next 2 minutes, Isaiah Stewart's eye just got bloody along with his mouth. How did that happen? I don't know. I guess I know LeBron James is a big dude, but I didn't think his his quote unquote fingers and hands could do all that type of damage. But after that, LeBron James got into it verbally with Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart went ballistic after he was restrained by your guy Cade Cunningham.
Mhm.
LeBron James was tossed after the refs reviewed the tape and said there was a flagrant 2. Isaiah Stewart still went off at the mouth. He yelled at Anthony Davis. He yelled at DeAndre Jordan. I believe he was trying to go after Russell Westbrook as
Yes, he
well.
was.
And it was
Westbrook wanted no part of that though. So if you
exactly.
saw, he's like, nope, I'm taking my boat right here.
Yeah.
I ain't getting in the middle of that. So no, but yeah, I mean, but the weird thing about it is that kind of woke the Lakers up, that whole
Yeah.
little whatever that whole thing was.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Look, I'm sure there's gonna be fines and suspensions
Mhm.
abound. So the whole thing. I know people want to make it into like a Malice in the Palace too, but that was just stupid. Like the different circumstances, and plus the fact that I don't know what Stewart was thinking. I don't know, like if he was trying to. It just no, that just wasn't very smart. Yeah, yes, I didn't know. 38-year-old LeBron's elbow can do that much damage to somebody's face, but I don't know how his face got that Stewart's face got that bloody. But I don't want to get into it because I think it's just stupid. But I think the important thing is that if you're the Lakers, the fact that they were able to he scored 37 points in the fourth quarter to seal the win. AD had 30 points, and then finished up at 30. Carmelo had 18 off the bench. Westbrook had 26. So you're starting to think that maybe are they starting to kind of turn the corner? I mean, they're 9-9 right now. So, we'll see how the Lakers do it. But this could be the thing that wakes them up. Who knows?
Yeah, and they are currently 1-2 on the East Coast road trip. They lost to Milwaukee last Wednesday, and they lost to Boston on Friday on both national televised games. Even though they did play well against Milwaukee, they just couldn't stop Giannis's 47-point performance. Yeah. But a couple of other things on that game before we move on. One, I was watching the Lakers post-game show with James Worthy and Big Shot Bob. He was there last night along with Allie Clifton. And James Worthy talked about you don't want to see your teammates in a fight ever, but it could rally the troops here, as you talked about, Lakeena. So hopefully that this will wake them up. I know Anthony Davis said in his presser last night of following the win, and so you don't like to see anybody get into a fight, but hopefully this will wake up the Lakers, and we'll see what happens. They got a game tomorrow night against the Knicks. We'll give you the rest of the schedule in just a moment for the week coming up here in the NBA. But another thing about a couple more things about the incident last night. One with Isaiah Stewart going off like Marshawn Lynch there. I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA decides to send him a message and suspend him a couple of games. No, he didn't throw a punch, thank goodness. But with any ejection, you're supposed to leave in a timely fashion. Now, LeBron James did that with no problem. But if you're Isaiah Stewart, he was being restrained about 3 or 4 times. Then you want to break away and start yelling and screaming for us, almost inciting a fight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He's going to get fined, but hopefully Adam Silver will send him a message and suspend him at least 2 or 3 games. You're supposed to leave in a timely fashion. You didn't do that.
That's one thing people can say, because people say, "Oh, LeBron's this and LeBron's that." Hey, at least look. At least when LeBron got ejected, he left, so he did what he was supposed to do.
Right. If that saves him for not being suspended for tomorrow night's game against the Knicks, so be it. He was a smarter person than Mr. Stewart was. And did you pay attention to all that was going on? You mentioned the Malice at the Palace thing. Did you hear the PA announcer Mason for the Pistons? Please, fans, do not go on the court.
Yeah,
if you do, you'll be booted out the arena. Do not go on the court.
Don't throw things either. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Don't throw anything, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I will beat your ass personally if you do. Stay your ass in those seats.
Yeah, exactly. So so they were trying to prevent that.
Please
so
do not go on the court.
Yeah, it can be a little annoying at times, but he's smart. He knows. So let's get to it and talk. I'm done talking about it. That was just a whole thing.
I had to get that out. Yeah, move on.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing should not have escalated the way that it did. I mean, should have just left. Stewart should have just left like he was supposed to. At least LeBron did what he was supposed to. He left. But, the fact that they may send in a message that don't be surprised if Stewart is getting 2 or 3 games and LeBron gets maybe 1, if that. So he doesn't have a track record of it. So I know people always want to rag on LeBron, but at least, look, at least he did what he was supposed to do. He left in a timely manner. This guy just kept going on and on he was out there for like another 5 minutes when he shouldn't have been. So that was just not very smart. So let's get to like the rest of the games for this week. Tonight's games, you got Brooklyn and Cleveland. That's the NBA TV game, the first of that doubleheader. So
without Kevin Durant, I believe, still, because he missed Friday's game against the Magic. I believe he has a bad shoulder.
Yeah, shoulder injury. So that could be out without him again tonight. We'll see. Cleveland's actually been playing okay. Charlotte and Washington.
That's going to be a good one.
The LaMelo Ball, that should be a fun one. Also against Bradley Beal, that should be a fun one at 6:00. Houston and Boston, 6:30. That should be an interesting one. Indiana, of course, and Chicago. We'll see how Chicago looks. Fresh off that big win last night against the Knicks. Orlando and Milwaukee. Looks like Milwaukee might be starting to turn the corner a little bit. And Minnesota and the Zionless New Orleans Pelicans. We'll see how both those teams have had going in different directions, but that should be a fun one still.
And of course, wrapping up tonight's schedule, we'll have the Memphis Grizzlies facing off against the Utah Jazz at 8 o'clock. Of course, this is the rematch from last year's first round playoff series. The Jazz, they're doing good as far as the regular season is concerned. As we always say, let's see you do it in the playoffs. Of course, the 76ers and the Sacramento Kings, the debut of interim head coach Alvin Gentry. He'll make his debut on the Kings bench. You can watch that game tonight at 9 p.m. on NBA TV. Now going to Tuesday's action, the TNT doubleheader. Hopefully, it'll have LeBron. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what the league announces later today in terms of the incident with the Pistons last night. But regardless, it'll be the Lakers and the Knicks at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow on TNT. The second half of that doubleheader will have the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trail Blazers at 9 p.m. The Heat and the Pistons will play at 6 o'clock. In the 9:30 p.m. slot, we'll have Dallas at the Clippers. So that's your schedule for Tuesday.
Luca versus PG. That should be
Mhm.
a fun one out there in Los Angeles. And we're not calling it by that corporate name, the crypto, whatever that's. No, nobody's calling it that. Don't you even try it. Don't even ask. All right. On Wednesday, you got Phoenix and Cleveland at 6 o'clock. Phoenix start their East Coast trip, so that should be a fun one. The Lakers and the Pacers, always fun with those two. We'll see if LeBron is back by then, if he does get suspended. Charlotte and Orlando, two up and coming teams in the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn and Boston, we'll see. It's the first of the ESPN doubleheader. We'll
Mhm.
see if Katie will be back by then, and it looks like maybe Jaylen Brown might be back as well. I think he already is back, but yeah, that should be a fun one there out east. Chicago and Houston. Houston's not too bad. I mean, they've got a lot of great young talent there,
Mhm.
but we'll see how they look. But that should be a fun one down in Houston. Let's see, Miami and Minnesota. I know our girl Lana Tech will be looking forward to that game.
Yep.
Mm,
to
excuse
to
me.
wrap up the Wednesday schedule, Washington at New Orleans at 7 o'clock. Most of these games are stacked because of the
The
NBA will
Thanksgiving,
have the
yeah.
Thanksgiving will have off. The Jazz and the Thunder at 7 o'clock. The Hawks and the Spurs at 7:30. The 76ers at the Golden State Warriors. Will Joel Embiid be back by then? Shall see. But that's the second half of that ESPN doubleheader for your Wednesday. And then your Wednesday schedule will wrap up at 9 p.m. with the Trailblazers and the Sacramento Kings doing battle.
All right. So of course, like we said, Sid, of course, they usually have Thanksgiving off in the NBA, so that's why there are no games Thursday. So that way this will give the players a chance to spend time with their families. Now they have a big schedule coming up this weekend, but we'll talk about that in a couple of days.
Yes, we'll talk about that. Lakeena, since we have less than a minute left before we hit the bottom of the hour break, I was listening to Locked On NBA podcast this time last week, and they said that DeMar DeRozan could be a surprise candidate for MVP. And I said, I can see that because of his back-to-back 30 plus performances against the Clippers and the Lakers. I know Steph Curry is your leader right now, and so be it. Will you take DeMar? Does DeMar DeRozan belong in the top three as far as MVP consideration is concerned
I think
in
he
your
should.
mind?
I think so. I think he's definitely
Okay.
right there. I think he's definitely right there in the team photo. I think he totally deserves to be right there in like the top 3 and 5 for
Hmm.
MVP discussion. Of course, it's Steph. You got Steph. Of course, you got KD. I know he's been banged up the last couple
You
of
got
games.
Giannis too.
Giannis, of course. So you got to think that those are kind of like your top 3 right now. You got to think the Roses up there. Who else? I'm trying to think who else
I was
could
gonna
be
say
up.
maybe Jason Tatum, but
I was
he'll
gonna
be in
say
that next
maybe,
group.
yeah, I'll say yeah, maybe Tatum might be up there too. Cause I think he's the reason that Boston's still up there. Like I said before, with Brown being out the last couple of weeks, he's kind of kept the Celtics afloat. So you gotta think
Hmm.
he's definitely up there as well. Bradley Beal is another guy. You gotta think he definitely should
Good
definitely
call. Good call. Yeah.
get some deserving a shot at perhaps maybe MVP. So yeah, I think DeRozan definitely has a chance. Donovan Mitchell, of course, I know he'll say, "Hey, don't forget about me," and he should, and we shouldn't. Luca, I know Luca's had his struggles because the Mavericks have struggled. So
Hmm.
you gotta think that the top 3 right now are Steph, KD, and I don't also maybe he's up there as well. Maybe some people say maybe CP3. I still say CP3, probably should have been up there last year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look, I think there are a lot, they're like good 5 or 6 guys, but I think it's definitely Steph's award right now as of November 22nd.
All right. We hit the bottom of the hour. We have one more segment to go as you're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live and in living color, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. On the flip side, we'll have your Saturday in review from Week 12 in college football. Who should be your top 4 teams in the nation? There's a couple of teams that bit the bullet, and Lakeena will have her college basketball notes as well. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NFL, the Bears lost their 5th straight following 16-13 at home against the Ravens. Chicago's Andy Dalton threw 2 touchdown passes after Justin Fields left the game with a rib injury in the 3rd quarter. Chicago was on top 13-9 with 1:41 remaining. The Ravens answered with a 72-yard touchdown drive. Devonta Freeman with a 3-yard run with 22 seconds left to go ahead. The Ravens were playing without starting quarterback Lamar Jackson. He was ruled ineligible 90 minutes before kickoff. Quick turnaround for the Bears. They'll play this Thursday afternoon at Detroit. NHL, the Blackhawks shut out the Canucks 1-0. Chicago 6-10-2 with the win. Brandon Hagel with the only goal Chicago needed. Marc-Andre Fleury with 40 stops in net. NBA, the Bulls beat the Knicks 109-103. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
O'Reilly.
When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at TempurPedic.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. Last segment for this Monday edition, right here, live in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena McGee is she. Sydney Brown is me. Let's finish up this Monday edition on a high note, Lakeena, and discussing the Week 12 action from the world of college football. Lakeena, let's get this game out of the way. It was the highlighted game for ABC, number 4 Ohio State. The Buckeyes, they destroyed the number 7 ranked team in the country, the Michigan State Spartans, 56-7. CJ Stroud was the player of the game, 32 of 35, 432 yards and 6 touchdown passes. Mr. Master Teague the third, the running back for Ohio State, he had 21 carries, 95 yards and a touchdown. I had to pronounce his name. Chris Olave had 7. Olive, thank you. Had 7 catches, 140 yards, and 2 scores. Ohio State scored 21 unanswered points to start the game. It was ugly from the start. Lakeena, I told you this before we started recording. I turned it off after the first quarter. I did.
It was just after the first quarter was 21-0. So that should have been the first start right there. Ohio State just dominated from start to finish. 432 yards and 6 touchdown passes for Mr. CJ Stroud. I mean, Kenneth Walker the third wasn't a factor. They just, the Sparty just didn't have it. And look, I think Ohio State's sort of quietly kind of getting better at the right time, and it sets up that big game against Michigan. Michigan takes care of business against Maryland, and it sets up Ohio State and Michigan for the Big 10 East Division. And there's your big news Saturday game, and we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. But so just a big performance by Ohio State. All right, Cincinnati. Look, I think Luke Fickle wanted his team to kind of like send a message to the playoff folks, and they did just that. They beat a pretty good SMU team. An 8-3 SMU team. This team had 8 wins, but they dominated. And Desmond Ritter had 3 touchdown passes, also a touchdown run, and I think they sent a message that, hey, you know what? Don't forget about us.
Yeah, but another team they can say, don't forget about us, is Alabama, the #2 team in the country. They defeated the SEC rival Arkansas Razorbacks, ranked number 21 at the moment, 42-35. Mr. Bryce Young for Alabama, he had a heck of a day, 559 yards passing for 5 touchdown passes. Mr. Brian Robinson Jr. ran that ball for the Crimson Tide 27 times for 122 yards. And for the Crimson Tide, Williams had 8 catches for 190 yards.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Arkansas, they had a fake field goal that went for a touchdown, but they
Mhm.
just couldn't, they just couldn't stop Alabama's offense. So, that should set up a Georgia versus Alabama for the SEC title in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how that goes. Big upset here, I guess you can call it that. Utah just hammered Oregon 38-7, dominated from start to finish. Tavion Thomas had 3 rushing touchdowns. Cameron Rising threw for 178 yards, had a
Mhm.
rushing touchdown, and it was actually their defense. Also, too, they rushed for 208 yards combined. So that was a big get for them. And look, that derails Oregon's chances of going to the playoff. Way to go, Oregon. But yeah, but it looks like they sealed the Pac-12 South, and that's that just a dominate win for Utah.
What did I say on Friday, Lakina? I said this was a bigger game for Utah. Even though the pressure that was on Oregon, and I didn't think they were going to end up at number 4 at the end of the season, but it was a bigger game for Utah. Like you said, they were been up and down, and they showed that they were the better team on Saturday. That I didn't expect them to dominate Oregon the way they did.
Yeah, absolutely did not expect that at all. Oklahoma with a nice bounce back win against Iowa State. But they needed Baylor to lose. They did not. They beat K State. So it sets up that bedlam game between Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State took care of business. They won their game. So this could be a preview of the Big 12 title game coming up. OK State, of course, they beat Texas Tech, shutting them out 23-0. Baylor beat K State 20-10, and Oklahoma held off Iowa State 28-21. So
Mhm.
like I said, it sets up that great bedlam game against them, and should be a fun one on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Clemson sort of
Yeah.
play a little spoiler there, upsetting Wake Forest, and Clemson saying that, hey, look, we're still here, don't get it twisted. Kobe Pace had 191 yards and
Mhm.
2 touchdowns. Will Shipley had 112 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So they had like over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns combined. DJ Ugule had 208 yards and a touchdown pass. Shipley also had a touchdown pass. So Clemson playing a little bit of spoiler there for the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, I kind of hinted at this on Friday's show, Lakina. Clemson, even though this is not their year to win the national championship, of course, they don't have the stud quarterback, i.e., Trevor Lawrence, that they had the last. Dabo Swinney has had the last 4 years, but I kind of figured that Wake Forest, no one's talking about them, and no one is giving them any props. But hey, yeah, Clemson, they had the home field advantage. They took advantage of the Demon Deacons mistakes, especially early, and they cruised on to a 20 point victory.
Yep, absolutely. Wisconsin setting up, looks like they're in the driver's seat in the Big Ten West. They held off with Nebraska, I should say, 35-28
Mm-hmm.
there. Illinois, could not pull off the upset at Kinnick Stadium. They lost to Iowa 33-23. What? I didn't think they were going to pull it off. UT San Antonio held off. They had a fake. They pulled a fake field goal because it wouldn't have done them any good. But they were able to throw a touchdown, and they were able to stay undefeated. No one's really talking about them, but Roadrunner's still undefeated. Beep beep.
And speaking of getting back on track, the Purdue Boilermakers going back to the Big Ten, they defeated Northwestern 32-14 in the football game that was played in Wrigley Field. It actually looked better this time than it did a decade ago when Northwestern Illinois tried to play their college football game there. Now, sure you heard this question throughout the whole weekend, Lakeena. I think it was brought up to Northwestern's head coach, Pat Fitzgerald. Do you think that the city of Chicago should host a bowl game there at Wrigley Field every year?
I don't know if they're gonna do that. I mean, I feel like maybe, of course, the weather might be an issue. I mean, I know Chicago is
Mhm.
always a tourist city, but not for
Mhm.
no bowl game. So if the Soldier Field had a dome over it, and maybe we would be having this conversation about the Bears perhaps moving to Arlington Heights. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. Just saying.
But the Yankee Stadium, they have a bowl game every year. I know the Fenway Park has been used over the years occasionally for a football game. Why not Wrigley Field?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll see, but yeah, but it was a nice atmosphere there, and Purdue, got a bounce back win against Northwestern. UCLA won the Battle of Los Angeles. They much needed that win after they had lost a couple in a row. 62-33. Dorian Thompson Robinson had 4 touchdown passes, also 2 touchdown rushing touchdowns, I should say. So it wasn't, yeah. All the SC fans are just like, yeah, just wait for the season to be over with. But the good news is that UCLA is now bowl eligible with their 7-4 wins. That's 7-4. So
I guess Chip Kelly keeps his job.
mm, looks like it for now.
Speaking of keeping your status, the Penn State Nittany Lions, they shut out Rutgers 28-0 in Happy Valley, and your favorite team, I'm using air quotes here for those listening back on the podcast, Lakeena's number 8 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they shut out the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in South Bend 55-0.
Mm.
I'm going to hell, I know.
West Virginia beat Virginia Tech 41-23.
She just moved on, no comment.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Florida State won a couple in a row. They beat Boston College 26-23. And Florida unfortunately lost to Mizzou, and Dan Mullen's been let go as head coach. He was let go yesterday. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there in Florida. I don't know if it's the recruiting or is it just that maybe the personnel just isn't there, or maybe the coaching just isn't there. Maybe they need a new voice. I don't know. Don't ask me why. I don't know who's going to get the job. Who knows? But it'll be interesting. That's another high-profile job that's now in the need of a new head coach.
Yeah, back to Big Ten action. Minnesota dominates Indiana 35-14. So Minnesota looks like PJ Fleck and his crew is starting to turn things around. In the University of Miami, the U, they picked up a 12-point victory over Virginia Tech 38-26. Could the Hurricanes be bowl eligible?
Yeah, they got to win. Yeah, they have to win in order to get that bowl eligible. And I believe Florida has to be Florida State. One of them it's going to be bowl eligible too. Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a couple of days. But yeah, they've got to, they've got to beat Florida in order to become bowl. The winner is bowl eligible. So we'll see what happens.
And what happened to my Arizona State Sun Devils? Herm Edwards, come on. You played to win the game. They lose to the Oregon State Beavers 24-10.
Yeah, lost another a tough one. It's just injuries too. I think they just did not, their injuries have kind of gotten to them this year. I think they lost one of their O-line guys very early on. They just haven't been able to kind of get it together. So that's why they unfortunately could not. And they had to have Utah winning, and they had to keep winning. But we'll see.
And guess what? Ed Orgeron in his last coaching tour with LSU, they picked up a 27-14 victory over Louisiana Monroe.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I think whoever makes those kind of schedules like later in the season, you play a FCS team, but again, it is what it is. But a nice win for him, and I think they have one more game, until he finishes. But yeah, but again, we'll get to later this week. But Yeah, gonna be very interesting though. We'll talk, like I said, we'll talk more about these games coming up. A lot of rivalry games. You got the Apple Cup, which we Washington State. Of course, you got the Bedlam, which has a lot at stake there. Oklahoma State, of course, Michigan and Ohio State. So a lot still to be decided in the Big 12 and everything else. Also too with a lot of playoff implications still.
I know the rankings will be released, I believe, tomorrow as far as the top
Mhm.
4 teams in the country. Lakina, does Ohio State move up there now with Oregon losing? Who's your top 4 teams in college in the college
Uh,
football playoff?
well, we know Oregon won't be up there anymore, so we can
Shocking.
yeah, we'll tell them bye bye. I think the top two will stay the same. I think Georgia and
Mhm.
Alabama. Yeah, I think those two will be there. I think since he moves up, I think the fact that Luke Fickell challenged his team to beat a pretty solid SMU team, they did just that. And some people are saying maybe Notre Dame might sneak up there should they beat Stanford, but I think a lot still has to happen for them to even get up there. Um, Maybe Oklahoma State can sneak up there as well. I mean, I think especially if they beat Oklahoma on Saturday.
Mhm.
But again, we'll have to wait and see. Still, like I said before, still a lot to be determined. Still.
I was going to ask you about this team, but I think I'll save it till Wednesday. But I'll just put it out there. Just if you went to school back in the day, like we did, this is your rough draft question. Let's just say, Lakina, that
Mhm.
Michigan beats Ohio State and Jim Harbaugh finally gets over the hump. Does
Uh-huh.
Michigan belong in the top 4 if they beat
Well,
Ohio State this Saturday?
well, yeah, I think they can. I think they can kind of be up there at the top. But like I said, also too, they have to face Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, so they got to beat them in order to get into the playoffs. So they still got a lot of work to do, even if they do beat Ohio State.
Because Ohio State's knocking at the door, and I think
Yeah,
they should be up there in the top 4 right now, especially after what they did to Michigan State. Good grief.
and it probably will be at number 3, I think. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, still a lot to be sorted out. So we just don't know, and I think there's still a lot of things, especially when it comes to divisions and stuff like that. So there's still a lot to be determined.
Yes, and we'll see what happens there. We'll bring you the results of those results on our show, which we'll have on Wednesday because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So make sure you listen to Second City Sports on our next show this coming Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. You're listening to Second City Sports Live and in Living Color. Sid Lakeena here with you. We still got about at least less than 10 minutes left. Lakeena, you had a couple of nuggets from the world of college hoops. I saw that Michigan, our guy Juwan Howard, Chicago's very own, they dropped one yesterday.
Yeah, lost a tough one to Arizona, but look, Tommy Lloyd, who is the new head coach there, I mean, he's got those guys playing well. They're undefeated. I believe they're 6-0 right now, and they beat them in a one of the holiday tournaments. I think that in Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. So, look, you got a lot. Look, all this stuff. The people are gonna be playing in. I believe they're still playing in Maui. I think I'm not sure, but you get all these holiday tournaments. I know Purdue beat North Carolina and Villanova yesterday in
Mhm.
one of the holiday tournaments in where is this one at? Yeah, so like I said, there's so many holiday tournaments going on right now, and you got to get a lot. So they're 5-0. But yeah, I mean you're still dealing with this week, and also to Illinois, they get Kofi Cockburn back. They play Cincy tonight, and they were 2-1, lost a tough one to Marquette. So the Hall of Fame Classic there presented by hotels.com. So, that should be
Hopefully,
a
Mr.
fun
Colburn will have a monster game tonight because
yeah.
Illinois definitely needs it.
Yeah, they definitely need him. Let's see. UCLA plays one of the holiday tournaments as well. But so you got a lot, like I said, you got a lot of holiday tournaments going on
Hmm.
in very all over the country. I think the Bahamas, they're going to be starting their tournament in a couple of days. Of course, you got the Maui tournament. I don't know if it's going to be in Maui. I'll check, but I think. Hold on. But yeah, I mean, you got a lot of these great holiday tournaments going on. So it's in Vegas this year, of course. Since they were, Hawaii, they're not going to let anybody play. Couldn't. They were going to be able to have fans. So, you
Hmm.
know, but it's gonna be in Vegas. So you couldn't go to Hawaii, but look, I think Vegas is the next best thing. So
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
nice
So
to it's nice to see things starting to get back to normal here a bit, even though we're going to cold and flu season. But we were begging for some sports last year, especially in college football and basketball. Basketball around this time of year, as you mentioned, the holiday tournaments. We didn't see that a year ago. Now you're starting to see them. Even if a couple of tournaments on alternate places. It's nice to see fans back in the stands, the cheerleaders on the sidelines, and
mhm.
just fans just going crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that was missing last year, not being able
Yeah.
to have, the bands and the cheerleaders and the pom squads, right there
And
to kind
people
of help
running on the
you.
court.
Exactly. So it's nice to have that back. But look, Ohio State and Seton Hall, remember Seton Hall upset Michigan last week. So they're playing Fort Miners in a tournament there. That's at 5 o'clock on FS1. So make sure you guys check that out as well. Florida and Cal, they're playing another one of the holiday tournaments. I think they're playing that same tournament if I'm not mistaken. So that should be another good one as well. So yeah, so a lot still, a lot of great games. You got, of course, Notre Dame is playing in that Maui tournament in Las Vegas. So they're playing St. Mary's in the first round of that tournament. So that should be a fun one. A lot is expected of Mike Bray this year. They've struggled the last couple of years. So not saying he's on the hot seat, but I think you want to have a good showing if you're Mike Bray. So we'll see what happens there.
Any more nuggets or tidbits from the world of college hoops?
I'm trying to see now. Like I said before, like I said, I mean, Arizona's looked really good so far. We'll see if UCLA and the Zags. I mean, we'll see them play in about a week. So that should be fun. Also, too, shout out to Jim Calhoun, who's already a Hall of Famer, won 3 national championships. He was coaching at Division III St. Joseph's the last couple of years. He's officially reached over the D3 level. He has officially decided he's going to retire. So look, he's still in the Hall of Fame, but you know, I guess he just wanted to figure that this is it for him. So nice, happy retirement once again by him.
Yep, congratulations to him on a great coaching career. You're listening to Second City Sports on a Monday edition, live in the living color. Sid Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, we have a couple minutes left. Let's give this team a shout out. The Chicago Blackhawks, their winning streak came to an end last Saturday with the 5-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers, but they bounced back last night with a good 1-0 win at the Vancouver Canucks. Marc-Andre Fleury was the story with 40 saves. Brandon Hagel netted home his fifth goal of the year in the third period. The Blackhawks are now 6-10-2 on the season. They'll resume their road trip, the last game of their road trip, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. against the Calgary Flames. The Calgary is 11-3-5 on the year. They're a good, young, fast team. Let's see the Hawks can clamp down on them with their strong defensive play. As they display ever since a new interim coach Derek King has taken over the bench. Of course, wrapping up the schedule for the Hawks this week. Friday's game against St. Louis has been moved from noon to 2:30, and this game will not be seen on ABC. They'll be seen on ESPN Plus and Hulu. So Friday's game against St. Louis the day after Thanksgiving at 2:30 p.m. will be at 2:30 p.m. from the United Center. That game can be seen on ESPN Plus and Hulu. And then, of course, next Sunday is Hockey Fights Cancer Night as they'll host the San Jose Sharks at 6 p.m. Lakeena, I was one of those silly fools that said that the Blackhawks can make it to the playoffs. It's still a long way to go, but it was nice for them to bounce back after losing Saturday night at Edmonton. It was nice for them to bounce back with a good 1-0 win at Vancouver yesterday.
Yeah, that was a really nice win, and 40 saves from Marc-Andre Fleury. Look, we'll see if they can look. They've been playing very well since King took over as interim
Mhm.
coach, and they've actually been playing better. They actually look like a competent team again, and
Yeah.
we'll see. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I kind of feel like I know with all the stuff that's been going on off the ice, look,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can do about that. Let's cheer for the guys that are on the ice and see if they can finish strong and perhaps maybe make a run at the playoffs. Who knows? I mean, look, weird things happen in NHL. There's still a lot of games left to be played in this season. Carolina's looked really good. I mean, they've had 14-2-0 as of this recording.
Yeah.
Just an amazing showing by them. Connor McDavid, I mean, he's been, just amazing. Calgary's looked really good,
Mhm.
at 11-3 and 5. So still look, I mean, so far, I mean, that's looking pretty good. Also, too, of course, Florida,
Mhm.
despite, they've had to change coaches and such, but they're still
Yeah.
playing very well.
And the LA Kings is starting to come up too. I checked out a couple of
Hmm.
their games. They were in the same position as the Blackhawks, and now they look like they're a competent team. So there's some other good stories around hockey. I know. Congratulations to the New York Islanders. They're playing in their new building. I
Hmm.
know they lost on Saturday, but I know they're one of the big contenders, according to some experts, for them to win the Stanley Cup. So we'll see if they can turn things around here.
Yeah. Also, too, who else has kind of turned the corner? I mean, like I said, for Carolina, they've won 4 in a row.
The
Detroit's
Anaheim
lost.
Ducks with 23 points at 10-5-3.
Yeah, yeah, they've looked really good as
Mhm.
well. So yeah, so I think look, I think you're starting to kind of still sort of things are still kind of sorting, in that sense. And look, there's still a lot to be determined. So look, I'm not going to
Mhm.
say that the Hawks will make a playoff run, but they they they've looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. So we'll see if they can vote.
Yeah, and also Edmonton too. We just mentioned them with their win against the Hawks on Saturday. They're one of the top teams in the rest of the conference. Kind of McDavid and Leo Draisaitl. We saw them a couple of seasons ago in the bubble, but they gave the Hawks what they can handle. But those two guys, my goodness, whew, especially
Yeah,
Connor McDavid, he can
I
light up
know.
the lamp.
Is he the MVP right now? You think?
I think so.
I do too. Yeah, I think like he is determined. So I think he really wants to advance in the playoffs. So we'll see if they're able to do just that.
Yep. So there's your quick look around the National Hockey League in the Chicago Blackhawks. Lakeena, another great show today, right here on Second City Sports, right here on Sports Zone Chicago for a Monday. Lakeena, we have a program, as you kind of dropped some hints because of the Thanksgiving holiday. We will be here on Wednesdays. Yes, normally we don't broadcast on Wednesdays, but for this occasion, we'll broadcast on Wednesday because we all know that the day after Thanksgiving, everybody's out shopping or working or spending time with your families, as we'll be doing. Taking some time off, reflecting and getting prepped for the holiday season. So the next episode of Second City Sports Live in Living Color will be this Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. A special edition of Second City Sports coming up on Wednesday. That's 2 days from now. That's this Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. You can also watch our show on Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube, and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. So our next episode will be this Wednesday, right here on Sports Zone Chicago, noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yep. So off. Yeah. So also too, we'll have our girl Christine Manica join
Mm-hmm.
us at 1:30 at her usual time. On Wednesday. Remember, we're on Wednesday, folks. So please, please, please make a note of that. We're gonna have our picks. We're gonna, preview Lions and Bears. Yay.
We should
Some
have
other.
we should have some special props for that game because we know everybody's going to be watching. So we should do something fun on Wednesday, Lakeena. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
all bad.
No, it shouldn't. No, it really should. Of course, we'll also preview some of the rivalry games. This is the last one of the last week of the season in college football. So
It's going by so
so
fast.
I know, right? So yeah, and we're already in week 12 of the NFL season, so still a lot to yeah, it's going by quick, folks. So we're gonna get most of it as soon as we can. But yeah, it should be a fun show Wednesday, and yeah, looking forward to it. You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You can listen to our and watch any of our live shows. If you miss them, they're archived. You can watch and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to War on Anchor. You can catch the audio version of this podcast. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes on those podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at WARR Media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
All right, take us home.
All right, for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. And like, if you're not going to get vaccinated, at least wear your mask and wash your hands. Also, to enjoy the sports and be good to each other and be safe out there, everybody. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. And remember, we'll see you Wednesday.
Wednesday. Till then, go Bulls. Holla!